Another important aspect of working with organized content in Microsoft Word is tables and lists. Tables and lists are grouped together as one feature. That's because a table really is a list. It's tabular items that have just been placed into a frame. You see in front of you an example of a table. There are a couple ways that we can insert a table in Microsoft Word. First, I'm going to go to the Insert tab and to the Tables portion of the ribbon. Here you'll notice a pull-down under the word Table that allows me to automatically insert a table by just choosing from the grid lines. Notice that it automatically chooses the amount of cells on the screen, and the upper section of the actual Insert Table box will tell me how many columns and how many rows that I have chosen. All I do is select, and my table has been inserted. If I want to delete the table, I am going to the little square marker that is in the upper left-hand corner, and I'm going to right-click. Now again, there's multiple ways to be able to delete this out. I am going to choose Cut, which will allow me to repaste it in another position. You'll notice my table is gone. Another method that I could use to put the table in is to go to the pull-down and to choose Draw Table. When I draw a table, a pencil will appear. I now simply draw out the outline box of my table, and then I'll just simply draw in my actual columns. Now what you will notice about this method is there can be uneven amounts to the cells, and when I draw my lines going across, they do not all have to be identical. I can choose to put my actual cells in different components. This is particularly useful when you're creating a form in Microsoft Word. Each of the cells that I am now entering can have data typed right into them. All I need to do is to tab over to get to the next cell. Drawing tables gives you the most flexibility. I'm going to again go to the marker on the side and cut my table. Now you'll notice that I set up an earlier table. One component that I'd like to mention about this table is the table styles. I chose to go to the pull down and just choose one of the preset formats to color code my table. You'll notice on the bottom that I also have an area that will be for my totals. Notice the line on the top and the bottom. I'm going to go back to the Design ribbon under Table Tools, and I'm going to remove the total line. Notice how the top line disappeared. I'll turn it back on again, and total reappears. If I go to the banded rows, it takes off the coloring in between. Turn it back on again, and you can see the bands. It's important to understand total row and what its effect on a table is, banded rows and its effect. You'll also notice that there's banded columns. These are multiple ways of formatting a table in Microsoft Word. Can we put an actual calculation into these columns within Microsoft Word? The answer, yes, we can. This time under Table Tools, I'm going to go to Layout. Under Layout, you will notice that there is the actual selection for formula. I need to select the space where I would like the formula to appear, go up to Formula, and the formula table will automatically appear. I have the choice of putting in sums, products, minimum, maximums. In this instance, you have sum of above. Notice below I have a pull-down that allows me to put in average, count, defined, false. You should be familiar with some of the options that you can do in a formula. You do not need to memorize them all, but you do need to know exactly where to go to paste a formula. I am going to paste sum of above and say OK. Now here's an example of a typical exam question. When a formula appears in a table, will it automatically recalculate itself? The answer, no. Unlike Microsoft Excel, we must manually recalculate in Word. Let's say, for instance, that I change above entry to 7. Notice how my calculation stayed at 6. I will simply select the calculation, right-click, and choose Update Field. Then the calculation will be updated. It's important to understand that you must manually update these calculations. Now we mentioned earlier that your table is simply the tabs that are set up inside of Microsoft Word. If I type in a word and tab over, you will notice that tabs actually appear on the margins. We'll talk more about setting these actual tabs in the next movie. I also have the option of putting each of these words on individual lines and turning them into lists. When working with lists, we have the option of turning on bullets, turning on numbers, and formatting in multiple levels. When I format in multiple levels, I will simply tab over and you will notice that the outlining method changes automatically on the screen. You'll notice also that it sets up nice even columns similar to the table itself. Let's talk further about setting up these margins and working with the list in the next movie.